precious. One by one hung on a necklace. They'll always be mine. It makes me feel alive. I eat boys like you for breakfast, and I know that you tried your bestest. Never said it's right, but I'm gonna keep doing it.
Greetings, ladies and lads, and a happy Halloween to you. While you are all out getting candy and maybe some tricks here and there, the treat I have for you in store tonight is no one else than the Queen of Vampires and Mother of Nightmares, Lauka Vai. Being half vampire and half Vargeist as it appears, she combines all of the best that a life in undeath can offer. And if you want her to lead your hordes of ghouls to domination over the mortal realms, fret not, for it will be my pleasure to show you how to paint her. The idea for this video arose just like the undead themselves, very unexpectedly, while I was browsing eBay. Lady Vai arrived pre-built and primed, but with a little bit of damage and some gaps in between individual parts. We actually had the same problem with Raduka last year, and just as with him, I'd urge you to try your best with some green stuff here, as this miniature will be the crown jewel of your army after all. It took some time, but I also noticed that her arm was raising the sword towards the sky, and not towards her foolish adversaries. I think the original pose fits her character better, making her appear more dominant and in command, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't change the position here, and fearing that I might damage the model, I left her be and just moved on. In terms of her paint job, we start with her lower half, taking a self-mixed ghosty blue on a medium-sized brush for the torso and limbs of her ghoul body. A white primer is just perfect for these colors, so I definitely recommend priming her white, even if it's just a zenithal highlight. For the patagiae of her wings, and yes, I do feel very smart for using that word, we switch to a dark bluish grey, which I watered down a little bit so the cracks and crevices of her wings would fill in more to make the planes stand out. We also apply this color straight from the pot onto her tail, before moving on with a regular grey for her fur and these long and scary claws extruding from her wings. Now, the next step is slightly more difficult and maybe too much for your average speed paint, but on the other hand, this isn't your average model either, and I believe in you. Taking a white with a hint of turquoise, we pick out the individual muscles of the ghoul to give its anatomy more definition and, even more importantly, really help the model stand out. For the wings we basically do the same, but in reverse. This time picking a darker color like a dark grey for the end of her wings. If you've seen my tutorials for any of the other vampiric models on here, the treatment for the feet might seem familiar, as we take the same bluish grey from earlier and paint it from toes to ankle. While that dries, you can also use this color to catch some individual parts of her tail, where the light hits the scales more directly, before returning with a second coat of paint around the toes, which themselves get painted in a dark grey, much like we did with the wings. After all of that is dry, we take our light grey again to catch these overgrown toenails as well, before taking a dark red wash to give all of her claws the same menacing look they have on the box art. And with that, the ghoul half is already done, and my god are we on track for a cool result already. Time for Lady Vi herself. Where before we started with a ghostly light color, we now start with a dark burgundy on our brush, to paint all of her armor parts. I thought about giving her more of a red tinted armor, but now I do agree with Heavy Metal that burgundy fits a lot better here. After picking out the few leather belts on her armor with a dark brown, we take a very, very bright gold for the ornaments on her plates. And yes, this is always a pain with GW's paint. Since August 2021 I'm being haunted by this one comment telling me exactly that whenever I paint something in gold, I swear to God. I will switch to something else someday, I promise. After I forgot to hit record while painting her loincloth in our dark bluish grey, we pick a dark khaki color to catch all these little teeth thingies on her armor, and also use it to paint these prayer beads and attach trinkets. Before painting the other chain though, I think it's best to paint Lady Vai's skin with a bright eggshell off-white first, and come back to the second trinket once her hand is painted and dry. The trinket itself got painted in a dark silver this time, because I just wanted to mix it up a bit, and because we need this paint for her saber anyway. As with many ladies, a disproportionate amount of effort needs to be put into her hair, starting with a pure black on her scalp, all the way to a ghostly turquoise on the tips. Remember to leave one strand white as well, to really complete the look. And with that, it's only the base that is lacking some paint. For the ruins, I went with some classic stone colors, meaning a medium grey for the regular masonry, a dark khaki for the window to look like sandstone, and some light grey for the gargoyle. As the base has already been textured by the pre-owner, I didn't see the need for a texture paint, so I went with a regular dark brown instead. While that's still wet, we mix in some dark grey to catch the pieces of rubble dotted in between. I think we did a very good job with the base colors so far, but as you can see, the miniature looks quite flat in some areas. So let's head to the shades and fix that. Most of the washes I'm using here are custom mixed to perfectly fit the vibe we're going for here. Don't worry though, the mixtures of these shades, as well as all of the other paints I'm using here, will be meticulously listed down below in the description of the video. When it comes to washing Lauka Vai's skin, I opted for a very light blue glaze to just cool her look down. But it's gotta be really light as to not look ridiculous. Ruins on the base, on the other hand, got a really heavy-handed wash. Here you can also see one of the dangers when washing with multiple colors simultaneously, so you might want to wait for one part to dry before pulling out your next color. I actually did wait for the armor to fully dry here, before moving on with the next wash for the ornaments, because the parts sit so close next to one another that spilling is basically a certainty if you don't do this. And when all the washes are fully dry, we take out a light grey and a light khaki to add some texture to the ruins below. This is the reason why I held off on painting the vines, because there's no way that we could pull such a messy technique off without hitting them. When everything, including the ground itself, got its textures, we finally take care of the vines with an olive green and paint the trim in a smooth pitch black, before calling the speed paint officially done. A treat better than most candy, I would presume. Lady Lauka Vai is now fully painted and ready to challenge the realms of the God King himself. Battle ready as she is, this miniature will surely stand out in between the mind and soulless hordes under her command, striking awe and fear into the hearts of your adversaries. Now, there's still a little bit more time left in the video, which I want to use to show you guys some slightly more advanced extra steps, for all of you who crave perfection like vampires crave blood. A bit of a pretentious statement? Maybe. Anyways, the first thing I want to tend to is the ghoul half of Lauka Vai again, taking a bright white with a blue tint to it to again catch the muscles of this beast, revamping, lol, the bright glow it seemed to have before the wash. Using the light of our table lamp for reference, we find the spots of her body that catch the most light, and paint these with a pure white paint. Lauka Vai's skin herself gets all of the highlights in this pure white. Next off are the cells of her patagii. Bet you already forgot that one, didn't ya? Don't worry, I did too. Which we want to roughly outline with a light grey tinted blue paint. Leaving this color on the tip of your brush, we'll also use it to highlight her tail and the folds on her feet, which probably gain the most details back from all of this, so I definitely recommend you try it. Moving on from the more or less organic parts, we highlight the edges and well-lit parts of her armor with a light burgundy. This is all good and well, but the inherent warmth of the color didn't really fit in my opinion. Which is why I think we should do a second round of even finer highlights with a cold and pale pink, catching really only the sharpest edges and light reflexes. The golden highlights went very similar, seeing that a lighter gold would leave it too warm, which is why I think we should outright switch to a bright silver for the highlights here as well. As you can see, there's a lot you can do to influence the vibes and ambience of your miniatures, just by the choice you make for the colors that you use. It doesn't really have to be all that complicated. After catching the tips of her claws with the same cold pink we used last for our armor, we turn to her trinkets. I don't actually know all too much about them, and just treated them like jade-colored vials, with a bright green where the light comes through, and a bright white where it reflects. Although I really messed up both times here. At last, we come to her face, which I left completely featureless with the speed paint. Taking a dark red wash, we carefully apply it around her eyes like eyeshadow, and even put some on her lower lip, before we brace ourselves for the most difficult part. The eyes and fangs, for which we take a pure, bright white. Thankfully, with vampires, we can leave out the pupils here. In terms of the base, there's really nothing we really need to add today, apart from maybe a skull or something like that here and there, although even with that we really shouldn't overdo it. I even left out the usual bushes, as they looked way too bright and alive for this setting. And yes, I painted the skulls without a primer, shut up. It's Halloween after all, I need to give you the creeps at least a little bit. I just love Halloween. Not because I really celebrate it, but because the models I get to paint for it always seem to be some of my best works here on this channel, and I hope this guide will help you realize your own visions just as well. I surely do hope you got the treat you were looking for when clicking on this video. As always, I'll have all of the paints that I used for this model listed down in the description. And should you have any questions, maybe a couple of suggestions, be my guest and leave them in the comment section. I always try my best to answer each and every one who comes by. I also highly recommend you check out last year's Halloween special, as it's, in my opinion, one of the best videos I've ever done. And of course, there's still a lot in stock for the rest of this year alone, more than I could really try to list just here, so if I caught your interest, feel free to tag along and hit that subscribe button, as I am really looking forward to seeing you again in my next video. Until then, take care, have fun, and a happy Halloween.
boys like you for breakfast. One by one hung on my necklace. They'll always be mine. It makes me feel alive. I eat boys like you for breakfast, and I know that you try